And now it's time to welcome our very good friend, Brad Williams. He's the owner and president of Brad Williams Financial Services, a retirement income store located in Huntsville, Alabama. Brad, thanks so much for being back on the show with us today.
Well, thank you for having me, Dave. I appreciate it.
So pick out for our viewers, if you will, what you think is maybe the one greatest benefit of the Secure Act, as well as maybe the one biggest negative of the Secure Act in terms of how it affects your typical client.
I think the biggest is the fact that RMDs got delayed to age 72. I can't tell you how many times when I meet with people and we're beginning that process that they say, I really don't want to take this out of here. I just have to. Is there any way I can not take it? And I say, no, that's just the way it is. So that's probably the biggest bonus is the fact they get to delay and, not have to draw down until 72. Biggest downside is the stretch, which is probably, the number one thing that a lot of people like when they're passing assets to grandkids is the fact they can take it out over their life expectancy. And now till they, it's got to be 10 years.
So are you relieved now? You don't have to explain to clients this crazy 70 and a half thing that, if your birthday was July 1st, you get another year. If it was June 30th, you have to take it this year. That makes our lives a little bit easier, does it not?
Oh, you're not kidding. Because even when I describe that, Dave, they're still, you can tell the deer in the headlights for most of them. They just basically default to, well, you're going to help me with that, right? And I'll say, yeah. And then they say, okay, that's great. So yeah, I agree with you. It makes it a lot simpler.
And the benefits being able to take money out tax-free for certain things, that's a big help for some people. Again, student loans today student loans are such a big issue that we actually have a socialist at the top of the Democratic Party this time, in big part because of his stance on student loans. So just the fact that those can be paid off with tax-free withdrawals is a big plus, is it not?
Yes, it is. And I actually had several years ago a client adopt a couple of Russian orphans, and they had to take money of their IRA, and they paid the penalty because they were too young, but they could have gotten around that for that very reason. They just wanted to do it bad enough that they didn't mind paying the penalty.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Any last minute thoughts in the 45 seconds we have left in this particular part of the segment for our income generation viewers? Any last minute thoughts about the Secure Act and what they could do to really improve their financial situation now, given a little more flexibility?
Well, I think all in all that the pluses outweighed the minuses. I know statistics show that a lot of people don't actually do the stretch, so losing the stretch is not that big a deal. But the delay to 72, that's a big deal for a lot of people.
Yeah. And for people who are working, the fact they can still make IRA contributions past age 72 too, that makes it a little bit easier too for some. So Brad, stay with us. We're going to come back after a commercial break. We'll be right back in a moment, right here on the Income Generation, right after the break. Welcome back to the Income Generation. Now it's time to bring back my very good friend, Brad Williams, owner and president of Brad Williams Financial Services, a retirement income store located in Huntsville, Alabama. So Brad, I know we're talking about really the Secure Act today, but after what happened this past week in the stock market, coronavirus, Bernie Sanders coming to the top in the Democratic Party, let's talk about the markets. What do you see happening moving forward with the market? Could this be the tipping point? Is this the big tipping point? Or are we still going to have a rally through the election like most analysts thought through 2020?
Best case for the rally to continue, I would think it's about 50-50. I think the market's been looking for a reason to pull back. I know a lot of people are on a hair trigger with the trade wars, with all the issues going on. And this coronavirus really stands to bring some severe downturn to the world economy because China makes so many things and they need them in supply chain. So this could be the push that takes us to the correction. It could be.
Think could be a tipping point. How much of this do you think, in your personal opinion, is coronavirus versus the Bernie Sanders factor? I'm just curious.
I would say it's more coronavirus, but I think as time goes on and he gets closer to the nomination, there's going to be a lot of people that are really unsure about the direction because he's already stated his positions and they are not really good for business.
I love your sense of humor, as usual. But, I think you're right, because when you worry about a pandemic, you expect a real flight to quality. And as you know, the 10-year Treasury yield has now gone lower than it was at the height of the financial crisis. So with that in mind, we've got 1 minute left in this segment. What's the best advice you want to give to our income generation members right now, in light of the fact there's over a 50% chance that this is the tipping point for the next bear market?
Well, I think it's time to take a look at, depending on where you are in your retirement, if you're right at it or near it or in it, is taking a look at shifting from that growth asset you've come to depend on the last 10 years into an income producing asset that's going to be more stable and dependable. And that way you're not killing yourself when those RMDs come out that we were talking about earlier. So looking at stable and dependable income is going to be the key to making it through this crisis.
And at age 72, you only need to have really a 4% interest or dividend payment to satisfy those RMDs. And we all know somebody in Huntsville, Alabama, who knows how to get more than 4% in interest and dividends for his clients. So, Brad, thanks so much for being part of the show. I really appreciate you being here and contributing today, as usual.
Hey, it's always a pleasure, Dave. Thanks a lot.
And you stay with us, too. We'll be back here with more coming up in just a moment on the Income Generation. We'll be right back.